Hey, it's guys, WiseGuyVito here, and today's video is going to be a measured response against Commissar Kai's M90A shotgun video. He makes a few different arguments on why the shotgun does not need arm penetration and why the shotgun is actually just perfectly fine where it's at, and I have some major disagreements with him about a lot of the points that he makes in his video, mainly just 3 points, and we'll kind of go over like what those 3 points are, because he basically just says, hey, listen, like people are very ill-informed about the shotgun overall, and it should not be medium arm pen. I do have some very strong disagreements about it, and we will discuss that here in this video. As always, like, share, and subscribe, and if you guys don't mind, just put down in the comment section below what do you think about the M90A shotgun? Do you think it's fine where it's at, or do you think that it definitely needs some love in order to feel like the Halo shotgun that you always want to use, fulfilling that fantasy in the game director's own words? You just let me know down in the comment section below. So without further ado, let's get started.
My name is Commissar Kai, and today I'm going to show y'all exactly why this gun is so strong and how to use it to its fullest potential. Plus, we'll be busting some myths and some misinformed opinions. Let's start off with its stats. The M90A shotgun fires 8-gauge Magnum buckshot rounds. Each shell carries 11 pellets that each do 55 damage and 15 durable damage for a total of 605 and 165 damage respectively, making this the hardest hitting shotgun in the game. Hell, its durable damage, the ability to hit the hardened parts of enemies, is only 2 less than the frickin' AMR, which is just nuts for a primary weapon. It has excellent ergonomics at 65, which is the same as the Punisher, making it a very responsive weapon that excels in close quarters. And it has a massive amount of stagger force at 35, which is enough to smack around anything smaller than a tank-sized enemy. It does come with 2 small downsides. The first is its capacity, which is pretty limited at 6 shells for the internal magazine and 44 spare shells, but luckily you can mitigate this weakness entirely through using a reload tech of slotting in shells between shots and bringing the siege-ready armor passive or a supply pack. The other quote-unquote downside is it's a light pen weapon.
So he kind of goes over the stats here. The one thing that I will say is he kind of glosses over a little bit of the the 8-gauge shotgun shell. To kind of get some context here, the 8-gauge shotgun shell is a quadruple-aught 3.75-inch 8-gauge shotgun shell. Those don't exist at all in the world. So we're talking about something that is a beefier version of a Magnum shotgun shell, probably. Other than that, or like that's just a typo on the Halo side of things. Admittedly, there's like some debate on whether or not like this is a typo or if this is what the devs intended for in the Halo games. It's either going to be a 3.5 or it's going to be a 3.75. If it's a 3.75, and if they're going to keep to their guns, and if we don't get any explanation, I'm kind of leaning towards that. Since the devs haven't corrected it, it's probably 3.75 inch, and that's how it is in the game. If that's the case, then we're not talking about like just your average 8-gauge Magnum shell. We're talking about like, and it even says like in the in some of the wikis that even he brings out, it's a quadruple-aught 3.75 inch Magnum 8-gauge shotgun shell. One thing that I will say as well is that I kind of wish that he would have looked into further, saw that the pellet count isn't correct. In Helldivers 2, it's 11 for whatever reason. In the games, it's 15. The M90A shotgun fires 15, right? The only M90 shotgun, M90 family, because there's M90 and there's M90A. There's also M90 Mark 1, M90 Mark 2. Basically, like the M90 Mark 2 is the Halo 2 shotgun. The shotgun from Halo 2 does 10, right? So it's 1 less, right? But it still even had armor-piercing capabilities from those games, and we'll kind of talk about those things, right? But kind of a little bit over here, right? You know, and again, like this is just me kind of autistically spurging out a little bit, but whenever he mentions the 8-gauge Magnum shell, he is right. It is an 8-gauge Magnum shell, but it's an 8-gauge Magnum shell and then some. But let's have him continue.
Everyone wants this home defense weapon to be a medium pin cannon so it feels more punchy. But I'm going to give y'all 3 good reasons why it shouldn't get this penetration upgrade before I tell y'all how to get around this so-called weakness in game. First, I don't think anyone wants Helldivers to turn into a pay-to-win type of game, meaning new guns have to be somewhat balanced around weapons that exist in the free Helldivers Mobilized Warbond. Given the M90A medium pin would immediately make the Slugger and Punisher shotguns completely useless, and would even make the Halt look like the 410 shotgun I played with as a kid.
Just kind of want to go over this a little bit as well. I don't think they would make the Halt necessarily a 410 shotgun. The Halt has medium armor pen already to it, which feels pretty good, but also has stun rounds to it, so it's like it has good crowd control. So like there is some sort of lane where the Halt goes into, right? Which is, and the stun actually lasts like a pretty good long time. I think it's like 3 or 4 seconds. So like, and I like using the Halt quite often. So it's a very versatile shotgun, right? As for the Punisher and the Slugger, there already exists a shotgun that completely makes these 2 guns irrelevant, and that is the Cookout, right? So we already have an instance of this already happening. So if Kai is going to be consistent here, I'm thinking that he would be calling for the Cookout to be nerfed, right? Because the Cookout is just a straight upgrade from the Punisher, and the Cookout is also a straight upgrade from the Slugger, because, you know, the Cookout also does stagger force like the Slugger. The Slugger is, you know, precision, sure, like you can get the insta shot or like the insta kill on like Devastators and Devastator heads and stuff like that, and Illumina heads. But guess what the Cookout has? As fire rounds, you can just spray into a crowd and kill everything and stagger. You know, like it's already like a super omega S tier weapon against all the factions in the game. It's not just like, oh, what's a, you know, S tier against bugs and limit. No. It's an S tier weapon against all factions, all the factions in the game. It's super, super good. So even if that, you know, like even if the M90A shotgun were supposed, you know, like let's say if it did get medium armor pen like tomorrow, it would still be outclassed by the Cookout. Like the Cookout would still be the thing that's like above it. It would just be a nice single target medium pen weapon, and that's what it would make it feel good. It would have less ammo, does more damage, and does medium armor pen. Whereas the Punisher would have more ammo to it. Some people don't want to reload as often, right? So that's why they would probably take the Punisher. Also, the Punisher has like attachments to it as well. Same thing with the Slugger. Slugger has immense stagger force, but it's more of a precision weapon. So again, I don't agree with him on this. I don't think there's any really like pay to win concerns. It's a Halo shotgun. It needs to be up to par of what it was in the games, because it felt good in those games. It does not feel good in Helldivers 2.
This means that to balance out giving it medium penetration, we'd invalidate its defining characteristic of absurdly high damage, or need to turn it into a support weapon, which I'd be fine with.
So, nice thing here that he says is that if it were to get any of the, you know, like any buffs to it at all, it probably should be a support weapon, which, to be honest with you, I kind of agree. If it were to get medium armor pen, I think that it probably would still be a primary weapon. I still think it would probably still fall within the realms of being a primary weapon. But if it got any of the buffs that I am suggesting, it probably should be a support weapon. And we'll kind of go over that later, because Kai kind of goes over it a little bit at the very beginning, and I've already mentioned already, which is the pellet count. And I do think that's very interesting. And this is why I think that if it got any of the changes that I'm suggesting, then it probably should just be a support weapon.
Second, it would not make sense from a realism or a Halo lore perspective. I know you might have just felt the fires of democracy rising in your chest after hearing that, but let me explain. I have seen dozens of comments about the M90A being used as an armor-piercing weapon based on lore from the Halo games. And because I don't like to talk out of my ass, I went and did a deep dive on its purpose and stats in the Halo universe to see if this was true. I could not find a single example of anyone in the Halo books, games, or TV shows mentioning that the M90A was designed to pierce armor.
So in the clip that you just watched, he basically just says, hey, listen, you know, I don't want to talk out of my ass or anything. I did a deep dive, and he scrolls through different Wikipedias. Keep that in mind, because we'll come back to that here in a minute. And then he basically says, you know, in the books, in the games, in the TV show, no one mentions that the M90A shotgun has armor piercing capabilities, right? So I'm not going to go too in-depth on this. I may be reading too much into this. You're not going to find anyone who explicitly says the M90A shotgun does armor piercing, right? No one's going to come out in the games and stuff like that and say, like Chief's going to be looking around and be like, man, I really need something that does armor piercing, right? And someone throws him a shotgun and says, Master Chief, this is the most armor-piercing weapon of all time, the M90A shotgun. That's also... No one's going to do that, okay? In the books and the movies and the TV show, no one's going to do that, right? So if he's looking for, like, a mention that it does it, it's not going to be there for him, right? But in the games, though, I mean, it's either you believe him or you believe your lying eyes, right? The games clearly show that this does pierce armor, and we'll get to that later whenever he shows a clip of supposedly, he's able to show basically saying, hey, look at this, like a brute is able to take a shot or whatever, right? But we'll get to that here in a few. As for the wikis, right, because he kind of scrolls through, I do use these wikis a lot whenever I did my research as well. Interestingly enough, though, one of the wikis that he used, he kind of omitted a piece of information from the wiki. And it's in the Advantages tab, talking about the M90 shotgun, the M90 family of shotgun. That includes the M90 Mark I, Mark II, and the M90A, okay? And this Advantage tab reads as so. The combined force of the 15 spreading pellets per shot does a significant amount of damage against almost any type of infantry, and the shells widespread in certain situations can inflict shrapnel damage to multiple infantry. A near miss can still inflict grievous damage. The M90 shotgun's powerful 8-gauge shell can punch through armor and energy shields easily. So right there in the wiki that he uses, it clearly states that it can punch through armor and energy shields, making the M90 a shotgun or a great weapon for taking on heavily armored infantry and lightly armored vehicles. The M90's top-loading system allows the user to reload the shotgun with speed and ease for quick firing. So, why did he omit this? Why did he omit this from his video? To me, this should be something that you should be bringing up, especially if you're talking about whether or not something should have medium armor pen or not. Especially if we're going the route of, listen, I could not find anything in the Wikipedias and in the books and in the TV shows and the games of this, shotgun having medium armor penetration or any type of armor penetration whatsoever. It even explicitly says that it's great for taking on heavily armored infantry, right? Heavily armored infantry could be chieftains. Heavily armored infantry could be hunters. And there are plenty of examples of this in the games, right? So again, why did he omit this?
In fact, the only bit I found talking about it praised it as a weapon for having a situationally beneficial lack of propensity to cause unintended damage to hard targets such as spacecraft hulls. Or, translated into Helldiver, that says, "Thank democracy, this cannon can't pierce armor, or I'd be learning to swim in space."
So this clip here, where Kai kind of goes over, I guess it'd be the space hull or spacecraft hull, I guess joke is really what it is. What this comment really is. It's kind of just like a comedic thing. Like, oh man, thank God I can't do this, right? This has anything to do with infantry armor. It just basically says this thing is so unbelievably powerful. Thank God that it can't go through spacecraft hulls. And I don't know how you can take this statement and say that, well, this implies that it couldn't penetrate armor. No, it couldn't penetrate spacecraft hulls, not infantry armor. Basically, what's happening here is that there's a conflation between spacecraft hulls and infantry armor sets, and I don't think that's right.
Even in the cutscenes of the games, you can see it knocking a brute down without going through their armor, which is exactly what it's supposed to do. Buckshot, even buckshot made out of tungsten backed by an 8-gauge Magnum round, is not designed to defeat armor. It will carry a ton of force behind it, but a round, heavy ball moving at relatively slow velocity ain't going through the steel plate of a Devastator's chest. Velocity and hardness is what beats armor, not mass. Wait, damn it. Okay, in Helldiver terms, one hard rock that goes fast beats armor. Many heavy rocks that go slow squish squishy bits.
So Kai's final point here is basically, hey, let's say if you were to give this thing, this 8-gauge shotgun shell, let's say we give it Magnum and tungsten and all this other kind of stuff, it still would not make it, pen armor, right? And then he kind of gives like an explanation, kind of like a physics lesson basically, which is, I guess like a physics or just ballistics, really. A ballistics lesson where basically is, something that travels really fast is more likely to be piercing armor, but many different projectiles fired at once that travel slower tends not to penetrate armor. It tends to it's really good for firing at like fleshy bits and stuff like that, which is all true. All this is true, by the way, okay? But one thing that I do think that is important is impact. You're still going to get severe trauma if you get hit by, from what the shotgun shell is for Halo, is a 3.75 inch quadruple aught Magnum, let's just say tungsten, right? Because we don't know whether or not it's like lead shot or tungsten shot. But let's say if it is tungsten, because like it's the military, right? The UNSC, like the believability of them using tungsten, I feel like that they would probably be using tungsten. That's speculation on my part, but let's say, just for sake of argument, let's say if they were using tungsten and stuff like that, right? This would still cause, if you were to get shot by this, it would probably still kill you. Even if you were wearing armor, this would probably still do a great amount of damage to you. It wouldn't be deflected off. It wouldn't just be a dent. It would probably just straight up just kill you, right? If not, cause massive body damage to you, like bodily damage to you. You have to think for like a few seconds, right? In the real world, what do they use 8-gauge shotgun shells for? Mainly, right? They use it for industry shotguns, right? And those shotguns are basically used for like mining and cement and steel industries, okay? Because any type of like blockages and like silos and stuff like that, that's where they fire these shotgun shells into, especially to break up like slag and like concrete and stuff like that, right? And mines. So we're talking about something that, again, sure, it doesn't necessarily go fast, but let's say if it didn't penetrate armor, like let's give that to him. The sheer impact of this would do something within the realms of medium pen, regardless, because the impact. It wouldn't be called medium armor pen; it'd be medium armor trauma, which is kind of insane to think about, right? Like, this is actually a very cool shotgun shell, if this ever existed and was ever used in the military at all, right? You can just blast somebody away, no matter what kind of armor that they're wearing. You're still causing immense harm to them, like damage to them, if this was something that was used in the military, right? So that's kind of what I think that it probably would do. And like, I'm just talking about just like low level, just like if you were wearing like Kevlar armor or something like that, right? Now, if you're wearing like steel plates and stuff like that, it still probably would hurt like a motherfucker, right? Again, we're talking about, something that's not necessarily pinning, but just the sheer impact of this would cause you to reel in pain. Reel in pain, you're probably going to get broken bones, broken ribs. You're probably going to rupture something. You're probably going to, like internal bleeding maybe. If we were to implement this in Helldivers 2, right? Implement this real life scenario realistically as much as possible, right? It would still probably come out to something that looks like medium armor penetration, regardless, right? Because again, even if you're shooting at something like a Devastator chest, we don't really know how thick that plating is. But let's say if we were to shoot at like a Devastator chest or shoot at a Hive Lord, a Hive Guardian head, or even for sake of argument, probably the best example would be an Overseer head, because for whatever reason the Overseer heads are medium armor pen, which is wild to me. Like, this thing would turn an Overseer head into mush. It would turn a Hive Guardian brain It would scramble it like an egg. And if you were to fire into probably the chest of a Devastator, it might not kill it in one shot, but what it would do is it would severely harm whatever type of internal circuitry or whatever that is inside of the Devastator. To me, that's believable. The rest of the video that he brings up is just basically like just general tools, right? By the way, you should definitely watch it. Even though that I might not necessarily like agree with like, hey, this shotgun's actually really good, all you gotta do is just same type of thing. It's still really good information regardless. To kind of wrap this video up, what would I do to buff this thing, right? Well, if it's going to be a primary still, it should probably do medium armor penetration, and that's it. Even though I would love to have the 15 pellets into the shotgun and stuff like that, if you introduce more pellets to the shotgun, like the shotgun damage would increase inherently, right? Unless they do some like fudgery with like the actual ballistic damage of the M90. If they were to do the things that I think that it should probably do in order to make it to be the M90A shotgun, it would have to be a support weapon. So basically, first and foremost, you would have to increase that pellet count. That alone would increase the damage to a baseline of 820 damage, 825 damage, I think is what it is. So it'd be basically an increase of 220 damage. And at the very least, it'd be medium armor penetration. In that case, I do think that it would probably have to be a support weapon at that point, which I think if Kai would be watching this video, Kai, if you watch this video, nothing against you. I think you're a great guy. I think you're a great content creator. But what I do think, though, about, like, I think that he would probably agree that that would basically call it to be a support weapon. I think that he would probably like it more if it was a support weapon than if it was a primary weapon. That's just me reading, that's just me speculating. That's me being a little bit of a mind reader. I think that he would probably like it more as a support weapon than he would a primary weapon. If it was a primary weapon, all that it would really need primarily is probably just medium armor pen, and it probably would just be fine. I have seen gameplay of this, by the way, as a medium armor penetrating weapon. It is not overpowered in the slightest, like at all. There is a YouTuber / modder named Grass. I'll leave a link down below in the description, kind of him showing off the shotgun in full, where he kind of like buffs like the Halo weapons, where he buffs the M90A shotgun, giving it medium armor pen. And to me, this feels what the M90A shotgun should be as like a fantasy thing, right? And if Arrowhead is in the business, like the game director said, of making war bonds to fit a particular fantasy, it doesn't need to be on the mind. It needs to be in performance as well. And I think Grass definitely shows this pretty well. So you definitely need to give him definitely a watch and a subscription, because every now and then, like, he'll put up a poll basically saying, hey, like, what weapon do you want to see be buffed next? And so you guys can kind of give your input on what things should change, and maybe he'll, like, he or she will listen to you. And maybe try out your opinions and your suggestions down below on his videos. So you guys let me know what you think down in the comment section below. My way off on this. Am I hitting the nail on the head? You guys let me know down in the comment section below. I'd really want to hear it. As always, like, share, and subscribe. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.